Have you ever heard someone say, "I just don't want kids," and watch the room go quiet like they'd said something wrong? Have you ever seen a young woman get asked, "But who will take care of you when you're old?" As if that were a reason to have a child. Have you ever noticed that the people saying no to parenthood the loudest are often the ones who adore their nieces, their friends' babies, their students? Here's the strangest part. This isn't a generation that hates children. It's a generation that grew up watching parenthood up close and decided to ask a question their parents never got to ask. Do I actually want this? Or was I just supposed to want it? Most people call this selfishness or immaturity, or they'll change their mind. But psychology has found something far less simple. Choosing not to have children isn't a rejection of love. It's often the result of paying very close attention. By the end of this video, you'll know the 4 psychological patterns behind this shift. The first was planted by watching their own parents up close. The second is a quiet calculation your brain runs without asking permission. The third is something the internet changed forever, and you've probably scrolled past it this week. And the fourth might be the most human reason of all. Because sometimes saying no to a child is someone's way of finally saying yes to themselves. Picture a 10-year-old girl setting the table while her mother answers work emails with one hand and rocks a crying baby with the other. Nobody asks the 10-year-old if she's tired. She already knows the answer would be yes. She grows up folding laundry that isn't hers, walking younger siblings to school, learning quietly that love in her house always came with exhaustion attached. Psychologists have a name for children who take on adult responsibilities early. They call it parentification. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just a childhood spent managing everyone else's needs before your own. And something about that childhood sticks. Years later, she's an adult with a stable job, a partner, a good life. And when someone asks about children, her stomach tightens before her mind even answers. Not because she doesn't love kids, because her nervous system remembers exactly what raising them costs. She watched the bill get paid in real time, on her mother's face every single day. If you grew up feeling like the extra parent in your own house, type "I saw it too" in the comments. But childhood is only the beginning. Because the next reason happens somewhere much quieter. Inside the brain, doing math nobody asked it to do. Psychologists who study decision-making talk about something called cost-benefit weighing under uncertainty. It's the brain's habit of comparing a known cost against an unknown future reward. Housing prices most young adults can't outrun. Job security that resets every few years. A planet whose forecast keeps getting rewritten. The brain doesn't need a spreadsheet to feel this. It runs the numbers automatically in the background every time the topic comes up. Now compare that to how earlier generations weighed the same decision. Many grew up believing the future would look roughly like the present, only better. Today's brain doesn't get that assumption for free. It has to work harder to imagine a stable future. And uncertainty is exhausting to hold for 18 years at a time. So the brain does what brains do with heavy, uncertain costs. It hesitates. Not out of fear of children. Out of an honest reckoning with a future that keeps refusing to hold still. And the third reason is something you've almost certainly scrolled past this week without noticing it. Think about how parenthood used to be seen by outsiders. For most of history, you saw the wedding, the nursery, the smiling photo. You rarely saw the exhaustion behind the door. Now scroll for 30 seconds on any given day. A mother crying in her car during a lunch break. A father admitting he hasn't slept more than 4 hours in a month. Someone typing, "I love my kids, but I miss myself." Psychologists call this a shift in social comparison information. For the first time, an entire generation isn't just seeing the highlight reel of parenthood. It's seeing the full invoice. Every cost, every trade-off, every 3 a.m. cry, filmed and posted. That doesn't make parenthood worse than it used to be. It makes it visible in a way it almost never was. And once you can see the full picture, the decision stops being automatic. It becomes something people actually sit down and calculate. Which brings us to the fourth reason, the quietest one. The one that has nothing to do with fear at all. Erik Erikson, one of psychology's most influential thinkers, described a stage he called generativity. The human need to create something that outlives you, to leave a mark, to matter beyond your own lifetime. For most of history, having children was the default answer to that need. It was often the only socially available answer. But today, that same need can be met in other rooms. A business built from nothing, a book, a classroom full of students who remember your name for years, a community project, a craft passed down without a bloodline attached to it. The girl who once set the table for a family that exhausted her grew into a woman who builds things now, mentors people, pours herself into work that outlives a workday. She isn't avoiding legacy. She's choosing which kind to leave. That doesn't mean parenthood has lost its meaning. For many people, it's still the deepest, most generative choice they'll ever make. But for others, the same human hunger to matter now has more than one door to walk through. And once a generation realizes that, the question stops being, "Why don't you want kids?" and becomes something quieter. What are you building instead, and why does it feel enough? Maybe that 10-year-old at the table never stopped setting things up for someone else. She just finally chose who that someone would be. If this is you, or explain someone you know, comment, "I chose my own legacy" below. And if you want to understand why your generation thinks so differently, the next video on your screen goes even deeper.